So we'll be talking about all-in-one security with open source tools. This whole story started a year back when I joined my my previous company, Geotap. So Geotap was first introduction. So Geotap was a company. It was a startup founded in 2012. It was new, and that time they recently got a funding, so they wanted to hire people for security. So it was it was a company of 150 people, and I was the only person for the security to manage the entire security. I was mostly into pen testing, so I thought like, okay, I'll test all the applications, I will scan all the networks, and we'll patch all the vulnerabilities, and that's how the security is completed. But no, that was not the scenario. So we'll be talking about that what I have done till now in my previous organization to carry on the security as a part of everything, starting from the identity and access management, implementing security into CI/CD, managing the server security, containers, and everything that I could have taken care of. So let's get started. Yeah, so when we talk about cloud, the first thing that comes up into our mind is cloud. So Amazon provides that SaaS services, but they don't provide security as a service right now. So we have to take care of security and access for all the servers, instances, S3 buckets, and IAM users. So when you start a server or whenever we host an application, it starts with the container security. After that, we check for the server security, server access, access management, then IAM user access management, then how you deploy and what are the services running on the instance. Then it definitely comes up to the application security, and that's how a complete life cycle of securities goes on. Yeah. So in responsible of the server security, these are the main points or the focus that we talk about. So first of all, managing users and user access to the instance. Secondly, what are the services and the service level security we have? Like you can say that whether it's the FTP, whether it's the SNMP, or any kind of services that is running on your system, that needs to be secure, and that the authorization should be managed for the particular services. Authorization services, yeah. Then comes patching. Definitely, if you have a lot of servers and you are a single person, you can't patch a server on a regular basis or on everyday basis. So you have to do something to manage your patch cycle, and you have to automate it. Then comes your database. Definitely, it stores your everything. So we have MySQL and Hive. So we focus on the security for these two databases, which I'll be talking about today. So after implementation, it's very essential to monitor that whatever you have implemented, whether it's working fine or not. Because you have implemented, then something came up and things are not working. So you don't know where is the loophole. So the second responsibility that comes up to the operation is like to manage whatever you have implemented till now, and to have a regular eye and the alerting system, so that you could get to know that whatever you have implemented is working fine and giving you a fruitful result. There comes monitoring. So monitoring again has its two aspects. First of all, your server and the security. When it comes to the server, the first thing that comes into our mind is the business. All our applications are providing us the business which is running on the servers, and that's how we get our revenue. So in the field of DevSecOps, there are two things that is very much mandatory. First of all, continuous integration, and second thing and the most important thing is the availability. To manage these two things, so we have to monitor our server CPU utilization, bandwidth, our disk space, so that whenever we have anything loaded or whenever our disk utilization increases, the application should not crash or the instance should not crash. So that was the biggest problem statement we had, because whenever we are deploying our instances, sometimes after some time it was working fine and then the system crashed because there was no way to monitor all of the things. So we have to figure out the way where we could utilize the open source things, or any way to figure out these things and to have a continuous alerting system or a monitoring system to deal with the situation. When you talk with our upper management, they said, okay, we had you are our investment, go ahead and do something. So the biggest problem statement for us was, we don't have any budget for the security. Everybody wants to be secure, but for a startup which is newly developing, it was difficult for them to have a good budget for the security, because it was for them not the mandatory domain, but yes, they wanted to be secure, and that's why they just hired us, and all the responsibilities was with us. So we have to deal with the situation and do something so that even something happens, we are secure. Okay. Then comes to our application lifecycle. Any kind of, in ZeroTap we have more than 50 plus applications. So when I started, I thought that, okay, every day if I test one application, so in 2 months I will be having a cycle of application testing, so I could manage it better. But again, scenario doesn't turn out the same. I test application today, and 2 days later they added some new functionalities and I have to retest it again. So managing time for testing the applications and assuring that it is good to go to the production and there is no risk for us was quite difficult for us, and I have to deal with it. So to deal with this, I thought that what could be this application life cycle. So as you all know, that the application begins with the architecture, then it goes to the SDLC, the design phase, then we code, then we test, deploy, definitely maintain, and on top of that we analyze that whether the application is running fruitfully or not and the way we wanted it. So this was our third problem statement that we got, that how we can implement security in all the phases of the application lifecycle. Okay. Yeah, as I said, why I automate, because I was a single human resource. Later on my colleague Suraj joined me, and that time it was 600 plus servers, but right now it's 1500 plus servers, 50 plus applications. We had cloud, and yes, we have to get ISO 27001 certified to get our business done. So we have to make sure that we are secure and we could prove it to the compliance team that we are maintaining our ISO and ISMSA standards. And that's how the journey begins. Cool. Are you guys interested, like how I have achieved it? Okay. Yeah, as I said, these are the challenges, like the human capacity, tool selection and the fitment, time, because per day a human being can give only 14 hours max, and definitely the cost segment. Then I thought to discriminate the whole entire thing and choose the fields and categorize the things what I can automate or what I can do for the company to make it secure. So yes, I found out these points. First, the infrastructure security automation, identity and access management, then security audit automation, offensive security automation, vulnerability management automation, and last but not the least, SIEM, security incident response management. Identity management. So when I joined the company, everything was in public service. There was nothing, there was no VPN access. Everybody who has the PM key can SSH into the system, the production system. They can run their code, they can access the S3 buckets. There was no encryption for that. And everything was public, even there was no VPN. And there was 150 plus users, so you don't know that who is doing what. There was no logging mechanism implemented over there. So I started, let's start from the identity management, because at least we will get to know that who is doing what and what is the kind of authorization we have made or we have implemented. Who has, so for that we started with checking out the roles and the responsibilities, and based upon that we thought we will put a policy for identity management. So for that, the best and the first thing that could come up to our mind is having a centralized directory. So this we have achieved using Jump Cloud. So Jump Cloud we used as a tool to manage all the users in a directory. So with that we are able to manage the policies, the password policies, the two-factor authentication, the password expiry, and all other policies that could have been rolled out as a IAM user. So yeah, this was the first step what I could have done to manage and maintain the things of the user access. Okay. The second challenge was, as I said, SSH. So the way the company used to work is everybody has their SSH public key. They could just put the SSH and they could log into the system, any kind of system. So anyone or everyone having a public SSH key could easily be able to access any kind of system, any kind of production system. They could be able to modify anything and everything over the production server. We had at that point of time around 50 billion customer data, which anybody having the SSH key even was able to delete or modify. So which could have been a great business loss. So and SSH key management was not even a small task, because everybody, even the employees who left the organization, was having the SSH keys in their laptops. So anybody, as there was no VPN implemented at that point of time for accessing the production servers, anybody having the SSH keys can, even from the outside, will be able to access the production servers and do any kind of actions they want. So yeah, as you can say, the SSH key or SSH authentication till now, the easiest way is to manage by the keys, but the challenges is that it will only provide authentication or the authorization. Let's suppose there is 2 users in a server. So using the SSH, you are able to authenticate, but the server doesn't know whether you are able to authorize, whether you are authorized to access that particular directory or not. So for that, we have to do something. And that's how the solution comes up with, called SSH fabrication. So the concept of users, so SSH fabrication is nothing but the model concept of the users, layers, groups, and hosts as virtual objects that are provided on top of the existing Linux infrastructure. So what we did is, like, along with the Jump Cloud, we don't provide the SSH keys directly to the users. We created groups, and we created layers and other users, and on top of that we have implemented the SSH keys. So anybody just having the SSH keys won't be able to log in if they don't have if they're not the part of the directory. And the authorization was with the 2 layers. One is the Jump Cloud or the directory, LDAP directory authentication, and along with the .pm file. So now we don't share the .pm files directly to the users. In fact, we have it in the configuration file of the LDAP. So whenever the user logs in with the Jump Cloud account, they will be directly able to access that rather than providing any kind of SSH keys. So that's how we managed our challenge for the SSH. Any questions with that? Any questions? Okay. Then it comes to the infrastructure security automation. So this was our second problem statement that we have to solve. So as I said, there are 600 plus instances at the point of time when I joined the company, and I don't know what are the services running. So, and I don't have time actually to go through all the instances and find out the services running and the ports working. So the most that I have the idea is, like, I have the cloud setup. So I could see the security group configurations which could show me that what are the inbound and outbound traffic that I'm getting, what is the IAM users policies for that, this is the max that I could have, that I have the time to get it. So if I go and if I think to harden all the instances one by one, then hardening one instance after checking out all the services would take me around 4 hours, and I don't have time for that. So I thought of, let's automate this. And when we talk about hardening, the first thing that comes up to our mind is Ansible. Ansible has been helping us a lot in hardening or managing the instances. So yes, and it took me only 1.5 days to harden all the instances with Ansible. So that was a time saver and the life saver for me for the first time. So in Ansible, we have, it's just not for the hardening instances. We could use Ansible in many different ways that we'll be talking later in the presentation. But this is how a Ansible playbook seems. Ansible is written in .yml language, and we just, to run any command, it connects to the host with the SSH keys, definitely. So for hardening any instance, if you have the server where you have installed Ansible in the same VPC, then it connects automatically with using the SSH keys. You just have to mention the instance name, and for the hardening, you just have to write your playbook and just run once, and it will automatically harden all the instances or run all the bash commands, so that whatever the things that you wanted to harden will be hardened simultaneously with for all 600 servers. When coming to the patch management, along with Ansible, there is one more tool that I have used. It's called Puppet. Puppet is a very friendly and nice tool that we use for the kernel patching. So as I said, that managing 600 servers on an everyday basis for all patching integrations was not easy. So with Puppet, it comes to very easy, and yes, it can be done with Ansible as well, because Ansible has also modules for automated patch management. But yes, it's up to you that whether you go for Ansible or Puppet, but I feel that both are very easy tools to manage it out. We'll give a demo if the time permits for both of them, and we'll see that how it works. CloudFormation comes with another solution for automated patch management. But yes, you have to see that with whom you are comfortable. But 3 of these tools are nice and easy to use for patch management. Yeah, then comes to the container hardening on top of CI's benchmarks. Ansible has the default playbooks for container hardening, and same as for firewall hardening and firewall auditing. So, yes. The second part that we talk about infrastructure security management is the logging mechanism and the log management automation. So now we have hardened all our instances. We know that, okay, these things or these services has been there, but we don't know, or till now we don't have any proof that if something happens, how to investigate. So for all those things, we need to have the logs for everything. When it comes to the logs, there are so many different kinds of servers, so many different types of firewalls or devices in our network. It's not, and all of the logs are not comes in the same way. So log aggregation was a big challenge when you talk about log management. And commercial tools like Splunk, Alien Vault, other tools like Outside, they were huge and they are very much costly for us to use. And as I said, we don't have any budget. So it was a big headache for us. So we don't know till the time that what logs we need or what logs we don't need to manage, how to aggregate those logs in one place. So we thought so we have first decided what are the logs that we actually want. So first is the RSS log, because it gives us all the system information, the RAM information, configuration information, then user authentication, authorization information, and many more things, kernel calls, user level calls. So RSS log provides a variety of logs on per instance basis. So definitely it was something that we couldn't miss out. Then CloudTrail. So CloudTrail, using CloudWatch, we capture almost all the logs and the instances whenever it is created, any modification or changes to our security groups, any modifications to our VPCs. all the information, any modification to the our instances or spot. So we use a lot of spot instances to manage our budget, like, or you can load down our AWS bills. So all the instance creation, deletion, modification logs, we get it from CloudTrail. And as being a ad server, we get a lot of customer data. So that we use to sync to the S3 bucket using S3 sync. So we need to get all the logs for the put and delete options, which has been called to the S3 sync, because the way we collect data is through FTP. One is through FTP and one is through one more application that we have hosted, and we have provided the access to the limited users, to, the advertisers, through which they upload the data and we get the data to the EC2 instances, and from that we do a S3 sync to our S3 bucket where we store all our data. So we have to see that when and what time the data have been pulled off, because the instances has a less amount of memory. So if you don't clear it up, then the next data whenever they will be pushing will be missed, and we have to pay a huge amount for that again. So yeah, S3 sync and RCS log and the CloudTrail was the main three sources from where we collect the data. And now we need to have a centralized log repo where we could store all the data and process it for our monitoring. So hence comes LogSatch. So as I said that Alien Vault or any kind of Splunk, everybody somehow uses on three principles. You have to collect your log, you have to make a query, and based upon your query you have to visualize so that it would be easy for you, because using the visualization will make you so easy to find out the gaps, to find out your action items, and definitely all the critical alerts that you need to get. So for that we found that ELK would be something that could help us, because it was free of cost for us and we could maintain it in a nice way. So Elasticsearch, LogSatch and Kibana together makes a great platform for us. Yeah, and again as you have seen that tips for logging success, as I said that first of all we have to figure out that what are logs we want. So based upon that, store those logs, get it in a centralized repo, and then aggregate. So for the aggregation, couple of people use regex, but regex is a painful task when it comes into managing different kinds of logs in a vast amount. And if you can't read out the logs and if you can't process the logs, then there is definitely no use of collecting those logs, because you will just collect it, store it, and after some time you will delete it. So in that particular point, Grok helped us a lot. Grok is a like using Grok, it's very help or easy to manage out and aggregate all the logs and store it. Then we store it in our S3 bucket, and from that we fetch a call using Elasticsearch, and using Kibana you can visualize all the logs. For even managing your Amazon S3 cloud cost, this is a nice idea. We use Grafana sometimes, but yeah, the free Grafana costs not much, but definitely it costs something. But yes, Kibana, if you are able to make the dashboard based upon your choice, then it's one of the best and easy solution to make it. And this is also something that we have used for our incident response, because with this ELK provides different APIs through which you can integrate with different alerting systems like Jira, ticketing system, or you can even if you want, you can even connect it with your Slack, so that for every alert you will get an alert, and which will be easy for you to manage. For us, for all the critical alerts, as we have one DevOps engineer in our company, so and that means that we won't be available all the time to check out the emails or the Slack. We managed to have it integrated with a product called Pingdom, which gives you a call and read out the emails for you, so that at least you will know for any critical alert you won't miss it, the DevOps engineer, because call is the only option where you will find a person mostly available on the time than rest of any other sources. So we are able to manage to get it connected with the Pingdom API, which doesn't charge much, but I think less than $100 per month for us, which was easy for us to pay. and management definitely agrees for it. And it helped a lot to deal with the critical alerts. It not only with the security, but also whenever the disk space gets filled up, or whenever the disk utilization is high, so and the system is about to crash, or for any critical alert that you can definitely customize it. You can implement any kind of alerting system, so which will be able to which will help you to manage the critical infrastructure. And the beauty about LogSearch is, though it requires a JVM environment, but it is compatible with .NET and Java, and it is written in Ruby and Python, but this is compatible with any kind of applications like .NET and Java, and it runs in JVM. So it's a bit easy to use, and definitely that's why it's the love of all the DevSecOps guys now. So any questions with this? Cool. Yeah. So this is the architecture of LogSearch. So where we have a CPO, or you can say that this is a forwarder. It comes, and so for every kinds of devices, like let it suppose be a firewall, let it suppose to be EC2 instance, let it suppose be your EMR, let it suppose be your CloudTrail logs. So all the logs, you have a zipper or a forwarder which forwards the logs, and at the indexer part you aggregate the logs and store it in your any storage. Let it be Hive. For us it was S3 bucket, but people do store it in Hadoop or Hive as well. Then you can, the web interface, for us it was Kibana, but yes, there are many open source other visualization platforms as well which you can use. So this was the basic mechanism of the ELK. The third thing that we have to take care of, being a part of ISO 27001, that all the servers that we have should have agent-based security mechanism. So for the endpoints, we had Trend Micro, and the same we have used Trend Micro Dev Security. Though this was the only thing that was not open source for us, and we paid quite a good amount, but that was something mandatory, and I couldn't avoid us. There was, because nobody could trust on open source antiviruses. There might be a virus by them itself. So yeah, this was the only thing that we paid for them. So it works on an agent-based platform. The agents has been installed with all of our instances using Ansible. So if you go and install the agent one by one just by your hand, then it will definitely take a lot of time. But yes, using Ansible, this was very easy for us to install all the agents in all our servers and monitor their health. We have a cron which calls up the A1 Ansible playbook, which monitors the instance state and gives us a report that whether in all the servers the agent is running properly or not. That is something we have implemented, which helped us to get a health check for all our servers on everyday basis. Second thing is the AppArmor. AppArmor is a by default utility that comes with Linux, which helps us in service level authorization management. So every service that we use may not be needing all the resources. So, but if any kind of abuse is there to the system or the services, then it can be misused. So a software is a software. It's to have it as a secure software that is running your instances, is mainly to provide the required system libraries that you want the software that is required with software to use. So in that case, AppArmor plays a vital role, and this is very easy to use. In fact, it has a learning mode by itself. So if you run AppArmor in its learning mode, it will by default take all the services and the directories that is really required by the software to manage. It will learn automatically, and then when you provide at the final configuration level, when you just go on click by click, it will just provide the access to only those specific directories, not to any other directories. So let's suppose Apache runs on your server and which needs the access to the var log and some other specific folders. Then after the AppArmor implementation, that Apache user will be only having permission to those specific directories, but not to any other directories. after that. So this is how AppArmor helped us into managing that service level user privilege management. Any questions with that, with this? Okay. Then comes to, so once we have implemented all the server hardening, we have implemented IAM user policies, we have implemented host-based intrusion detection system, we have implemented server-based intrusion detection system, then we need to get prepared for our ISO. So that's why we have to go for an audit. In audit, because we also get to know our loopholes and how much we have compliant to the standards. So for cloud, the first standards that everybody checks into is the CIS benchmark. So to get it audited, there are quite a lot of open source tools. The one that I found, the first was Scout 2, which used the Boto3 library of Python to make API calls. How it works is like it creates an IAM user with a read permission, and then it queries to for different APIs. Then it query using different APIs, and from the result, you could see that how the things has been configured. So Scout 2, Crawler, and there are other open source tools as well for the cloud, for the security audit automation. And in combination to that, there is a new tool called CS Suite by Jayesh from Bangalore, who works now, I forgot his company name actually. So he created a platform where all the three tools, along with some customized script they have provided, so which will be able to get your security audit automation done. So what does Crawler do is like it has 24 checks for the identity and access management, 8 checks for your logging, 15 checks for your monitoring, for networking, and couple of checks for forensics. If you go to the Crawler GitHub site, they have mentioned all the checks that they do as a part of the security audit. So this is how we have, and Scout 2 is one of the best tools which will give you a full-fledged nice report along with your compliant mechanism with your CIS benchmark. There are a couple of paid tools as well, like DOM9 and Logs.io, Evident.io, but definitely they are quite costlier, like $40,000 per annum, so which was not feasible for us. But as compared to the result, I could see that in combination with all the tools, whatever the result I get is more than sufficient for enough for us to get it compliant with ISO 27001, because it mostly covers all the checks that the CIS benchmarks wants or ISO 27001 wants. Apart from that, if anybody wants to create their custom checks, then definitely using the Boto3 library, they can go on and make their own script the way we did. And yeah, this is by Amazon itself. You can go on and explore with that. Then it comes to the offensive security automation. So as I said that when we have 50 plus products and we have to manage the security and we wanted to integrate security in every part of our SDLC. So we have to look after that. So when I joined, the architecture has been already done. So the mainly thing, all our applications and all our push has been done to the Git. We have a centralized Git repo. So for the source code automation, we have used SonarQube. So what happens is like whenever there is any kind of Git push, the SonarQube automatically scans the code, and it has the alerting mechanism along with this Jira. We have a Jira integration with the SonarQube, and SonarQube also supports variety of languages like Java, .NET, Python, Go, and more than 15 plus languages it supports. So yeah, so now, so whenever any developer pushes anything into the Git, it automatically gets scanned by the SonarQube, and hence the report has been directly fetched, so that before going to the production, it directly tells to the developer that what are the loopholes, what are the security flaws, what are the memory utilization, and what is the code quality. And based upon that, it grades the code up to a level like A, B, C, D, E. And if this is a fail, and if all those security checks is a fail, then we don't get into the production, which helped me to reduce the time to go and do the manual code review every time for any kind of push that for any kind of product deployment. So this is the SonarQube dashboard through which you can, as you can see, that it also checks the code quality, it also checks the compilation time, it also checks the security flaws in that. And if it is a fail, then definitely they have to work on that. We created a policy that till the time it's B, then it won't come for us for the manual code review. So if it is more than B, then we go and do a manual check based upon our checklist, and then it goes up for the next round of security testing called black box testing. So black box testing that also now can be automated by different open source tools, which we'll be talking later. And for the threat management for the applications, as I said that once the code has been integrated and pushed into the SonarQube, so after that the developer has to work and get it fixed, then it comes for a manual testing. So after, there are a couple of open source scanners like OpenVAS, with which you can directly automate it, or we have automated scanning with that for any kind of applications. But a complete testing, we go for a manual test, as everybody does, because all the business logics, vulnerabilities that cannot be tested using all the open source tools by default. That is the one manual part which I get time, because after all the automations I have done. And then it comes up to the vulnerability management automation. So as I said, we have 600 plus servers, and there are so many services running. We have to do a vulnerability scanning, because this is not only the requirement from the ISO 27001, but also this is something mandatory to being secured and to get to know about your network. So we used Nessus with Jenkins to get our production servers scanned on an everyday basis. All the as a vulnerability management framework, we have used Dradis and Vuln Report as two open source frameworks through which we manage and track our vulnerabilities. So every day, whenever we scan, we got around 15 to 20 vulnerabilities, which automatically get pushed to these two frameworks. So Dradis supports CVS, Nessus format and PDF format, any format. These three formats Dradis supports, and Vuln.io supports CSV and PDF formats as input, and then you can see all the vulnerabilities that has been and their stages in the dashboard. So this is how the dashboard looks. So once the report has been pushed into the framework, there is an automatic email notification that goes to the developer team, because we have a centralized repo for our network base and the concerned person. So from that, we have a script which picks up the vulnerabilities and the host name and sends it to the concerned team to check out that what is the vulnerabilities, to say that these are the vulnerabilities that has been reported on your instance of the server, and now you have to work on it. We give mostly 3 working days to get it passed, because it was a small startup, so people have the flexibility to do it in a small point of time. So, and once this is remediated, on the next day scan, it is when it is remediated and it is not found in the report, the vulnerability automatically gets closed. And that's how we don't have to work manually a lot on the vulnerability management process, as we have automated it in this way. Else, it could have been a time of around 4 to 5 hours a person has to give to manage all these vulnerabilities and the patching of the systems. Then comes our security event monitoring. As I said, that this was the most important and the integral part, because we have implemented everything, but now we have to see that whether things are working fine or not. So, and this is the mandatory requirement from ISO, that whatever you should, to get ISO certified, you should have a security event monitoring system, or SIM. And as I said, all the SIM solutions came with a great budget, so we wanted to go for ELK. And also there is one open source tool called Alien Vault. Alien Vault has their 2 parts, one is paid and one is open source version. So we decided to go for the open source version first, along with the ELK. As I said, we get our logs from all the 6 logs and cloud trails, and that's how we manage and monitor our instances. So whenever the instances, so we wrote around 180 plus rules, which contains, like, whenever the instance is created or modified, we get an alert. Whenever we have any security group modification, we get an alert. Whenever there is any kind of external access from any kind of different countries, we also get an alert. So you can create your dashboard based upon your geographic locations. You can create based upon your per day bandwidth of from any kind of IP. Let's suppose you have a customer which or you can say that this is a part of anomaly detection. Let's suppose every day you know that this is the amount of bandwidth or this is the amount of communication is there from your specific customer. One day it increases twice or thrice times. Then definitely it comes as an anomaly and you need to get reported about that. Or one day you see that there is a specific communication or outbound communication that is going from your network to any specific IP. Then definitely there is a malicious activity and you need to get alerted or monitored about it. So yeah, we have implemented couple of checks for like that for any kind of anomaly detection. So this is this you can use based upon that IP bandwidth utilization, and there are many sources you can create your dashboards. You can similarly check for your S3 bucket uses, any kind of IAM user modification or access or brute force notifications, and create your dashboard for that. So for all those alarms, even let's suppose you create an alarm and for a brute force, like for any kind of SSH failure, you will get an alert. Now, even in your company or in your organization, there are a couple of people who might have their SSH keys might have expired and they are not able to log in, and you are getting alerts. So you get 200, 300 alerts. So now it is not feasible for a small company. This is fine, but when you talk about a big company, it's not feasible to look into all the alerts. So you have to remove the false positives. So for that, definitely there is a very good scope called machine learning which can be implemented. But for the time being, you can just check for or modify the rule in a way that you get less number of false positives. And this we have done. So using ELK, it was a difficult factor, but yes, Alien Vault, it helped us a lot to remove the false positives. So that's why we went ahead with Alien Vault, and this is how the dashboard looks like. So every day we got any kind of, there is our environment changes or any kind of security group modification. We have grouped it into 3 different phrases. Like if there is any kind of SSH from the SSH failure from the internal user, then it called then it gets us alert as a environmental issue. But it is, if it is from any external IP, then it gives us a critical alert. So you have to define the difference between the events and the alerts so that you could remove the false positive from the alerts and put it into the event, so that you have the logs at least to see, or whether you want to you do investigation later on for any kind of cases. You have your logs or events through which you can go on, and it will be easy for you to go through the events, and you only get those specific alerts whatever you are looking for. So, and this is the dashboard for the ELK stack that we have made for our company. And as you can see that you can create the dashboard with any of the facts that you want, whether it's being a geographic condition, whether it can be per IP basis or per customer basis or user basis. So yeah, this is the ELK stack. And this is how we have completed mostly on major parts of the security, and we got finally ISO certified in March 2017. Any questions? Yeah.
I have a question that about the definition of the open source tool you have. Just like a jump cloud, how can you how it identify as an open source?
Okay, so Jump Cloud works on the Jump Cloud is in behind it uses OpenVPN. Same as there is one more tool called Aviatrix that uses OpenSwan in the background. So when we talk about Jump Cloud, we actually, so Jump Cloud, as I said or mentioned previously, that Jump Cloud and the Trend Micro, there are only two solutions, and the Pingdom are the only three solutions where we have paid money. So Pingdom also comes up free for 50 calls per day. So at that point of time, you can use it as open source. But yes, Jump Cloud, if you can configure OpenVPN, then you don't need Jump Cloud actually. But as a part of time, if you don't have much of time, then you can go for Jump Cloud. Or else you can go for OpenSwan, which gives you a IPsec tunneling platform where you can use your VPN.
Because free is not being, it does not, that does
Jump
not
Cloud
mean
is not free,
open
but
source.
OpenVPN is free of cost.
So how Jump Cloud is the open source? The open source repository is not just around, the API or support tool, but not the Jump Cloud itself.
Pardon?
How I still say that how you identify the open source of the Jump Cloud.
So as a replacement of the Jump Cloud, you can go for OpenVPN. That's what I'm saying, as an open source tool. Does it satisfy your query?
But you use Jump Cloud for the identity management, right?
Yes, we use Jump Cloud because because we don't have time, because we just have 4 months to get.
And why you don't mention about the Open LDAP something? If you say in the topic of identity management.
Yeah.
So how Jump Cloud declare as the open source?
Jump Cloud is not open source, but that's what when I was explaining about the Jump Cloud, I said that.
This topic you said is the open source tools.
Okay.
Right?
So for the Jump Cloud, as I said, the alternative, you can use OpenVPN, that you can take as open source tool and you can utilize it.
I think we can take this offline. We are running out of time.
Yeah.
So I think that's the last questions which we can take. Thank you so much.